At Thanksgiving, my relatives grinned smugly. We finally unloaded Grandpa's diner. You weren't included in the inheritance regardless. I grinned in return, paused, then delivered the single sentence that caused the space to fall utterly quiet. They weren't as excited when they learned who acquired it. Hey Reddit, ever experienced being the overlooked sibling in your own household? That described me for ages. Then, a single event turned the situation completely around, and suffice it to say, they never anticipated it. Ethan, 32 male, the alleged middle sibling in my household, which is merely a courteous term for the expendable one. My sister Janice arrived first, and right away became the favored offspring. She could have coughed into a speaker, and my parents would have labeled it a motivational speech. Then arrived Jake, the youngest, the infant we all needed to shield. He could have crashed a vehicle into the neighbor's letterbox, and my mom would have faulted the letterbox for being too near the road. And then there was me, right in the center. Not the eldest, not the youngest, just the filler. But here's the point, I wasn't some fragile whiner about it. I was clever enough to recognize the dynamics from the start. I ceased expending effort attempting to demonstrate my worth to folks who were never going to applaud. The sole person who ever made me feel like I wasn't mere ambient sound was my grandpa. He possessed this vintage eatery in the area. Nothing elaborate. Crimson vinyl seats, a creaky dessert display near the register, and the type of sandwiches that made you ignore fat content entirely. To most folks it was simply a kin spot, but to me it was an entire world. He allowed me to occupy the rear seat while he managed patrons. I'd wrap utensils, replenish sauce containers, and he'd slip me potatoes when Mom wasn't nearby. He'd refer to me as his tiny supervisor and teach me things no child typically encounters. How to tally a cash drawer, how to detect a phony grin on a vendor, how to extend a buck without appearing frugal. Janice never bothered. Jake never endured more than 5 minutes before complaining about tedium. But me, I truly paid attention. I believe that's why he appreciated me. I wasn't present for complimentary meals or acclaim. I was simply present. Now don't misunderstand. My parents weren't villainous schemers. They were just misguided, privileged, and persuaded their views were absolute. They believed Grandpa's eatery was excessive labor and outdated. My mom desired Janice to enter legal or governmental fields. My dad desired Jake to become the next star athlete. Meanwhile, their middle offspring was mastering how to compute earnings on tissue papers, and they dismissed it like I was doodling with markers. When Grandpa passed, I was in university out west, penniless, managing with borrowings and side gigs. I couldn't cover the flight cost home for the burial. I phoned my mom, inquired if they could assist with the expense. She remarked something like, "Ethan, you've always been self-reliant. You'll manage." Self-reliance, their preferred justification for disregard. What worsened it? They didn't even inform me the burial was shifted forward a day. I discovered from a message after he was already interred. Their justification. It was a modest kin affair. Everyone was mourning. It wasn't concerning you. That phrase has resided freely in my mind for years. It never concerns me with them, and they behave like I'm exaggerated for observing. After that, I chose. Cease awaiting their endorsement. Cease pursuing their fragments. I constructed my own existence. I entered programming creation, ascended the ranks, and shaped a life that excluded them. Not in a resentful manner, but in the sort of I'd prefer to dine solo with delivery than compel chit-chat at holiday meals way. Still, the eatery was unique. Each time I recalled Grandpa, I recalled that spot. The oily odor that never truly departed the surfaces, the buzz of the ancient cooler in the rear, the tone of his robust chuckle resounding off the flooring. That was my youth haven. And the insane aspect. He always stated, "One day, this'll be yours to operate if you desire it." But naturally, that's not what I was informed when he departed. My parents claimed Grandpa had streamlined everything and bequeathed the eatery to them. No document displayed, no forms, just believe us. And since I was 21, destitute, and too exhausted to contest, I accepted it. I assumed perhaps he altered his decision. Perhaps he wished to evade conflict. My mom's terms always that expression, evade conflict, which essentially signified accept whatever we determine and be quiet. For years, the eatery simply remained there. A formerly active location that became a deduction for my parents. They'd utilize it sporadically. Jake would haul his pals there to sip drinks and pretend like he controlled it. Janice employed it for some photo-worthy setting once. But mainly, it just accumulated grime. The harshest part, I remained distant. I thought it wasn't mine to concern. I thought Grandpa bequeathed it to them because maybe I wasn't sufficient. You'd be amazed how quickly you can persuade yourself you don't merit something when your kin reiterates it enough. But I'll state this. Separation instructs you more than ongoing disputes ever do. Residing across the nation, developing a profession, navigating life without them, it provided me insight. Every birthday message 6 hours delayed, every "oh apologies forgot to include you" instant just strengthened it. They didn't perceive me. They never did. Except Grandpa, he always did, the unseen middle offspring, the filler. He was about to turn into the issue they didn't foresee. I hadn't considered the eatery in years until I learned of how severely my kin's finances were spiraling downward. It began with Janice's messages. You ever receive a note so artificially pleasant that you can almost detect the privilege seeping through the display? Hey, hope you're faring well. Can we discuss something vital? Love you. Translation, I require funds. Turns out her flourishing occasion organizing enterprise was essentially just her exhausting charge cards to lease glossy venues and employ temporary workers, so she could boast on social media about being an executive. She thought customers would appear miraculously. Spoiler, they didn't. By the time she approached me pleading, she was 3 months behind on repayments, and her vehicle was basically a rolling cabinet filled with unsealed statements. Then there was Jake. My brother's monetary approach could be summarized as live for the moment. Fresh devices, wagering on games, spontaneous journeys, whatever provided rapid thrill. He'd oscillate between digital currency specialist and upcoming property tycoon, based on whatever online clip he viewed that week. Of course, none of it ever adhered, and he was overwhelmed with collectors pursuing him. And my parents, they weren't sinking, but they weren't gliding either. Dad's ventures kept failing, and Mom kept shielding Janice and Jake by channeling cash their direction. So the entire kin group was teetering on supports made of charged debt and poor choices. That's when they all abruptly recalled I existed. First came the collective call. I responded out of pure interest. Instantly, it was like entering a poorly practiced drama. Janice begins, so we've been conversing, and we truly believe this is the time for the kin to unite. Jake in the background. Yeah, dude, like you've got your major position and all that. We just need a bit of aid. Nothing significant, and my mom with the topper. Ethan, dear, you're so accomplished now, you can manage it. This is what kin is for. I allowed them to babble for 10 minutes. Obligations this, tension that. How Grandpa's eatery just remains there. Basically, their grand resolution was for me to provide currency or endorse some borrowings while they continued operating their farce. When they finally stopped to inhale, I chuckled. Audibly. Not an anxious chuckle, not a mocking snicker, just a sincere, deep laugh at how ridiculous it was. Let me clarify this, I said. You want me to pour money into the same void you've been supplying for years. You're insolvent due to your own selections, and now I'm supposed to be the kin dispenser. Janice attempted the remorse tactic. Ethan, you don't comprehend the strain I'm facing. My enterprise is about to collapse, I interrupted. Your enterprise is about to collapse, don't gloss it. Jake interjected with his typical incomplete reasoning. Bro, if you just lend me a bit, I can reverse it, like transform it with a fast victory. I've got this method. I didn't permit him to conclude. Jake, your method is why you're evading calls from 3 separate credit firms. I'm not rescuing you. That's when my dad opted to go complete authoritarian. We're not requesting, Ethan. We're informing you this is what must be done. We've always made kin choices collectively. I couldn't help it. Oh, truly. Like when you all chose to inter Grandpa a day sooner and neglected to inform me. Or when you chose the eatery wasn't mine even though I essentially matured in it. That sort of collectively. Quiet. The sort of quiet where you know you've struck a chord. Finally, Mom whispered, that's not equitable. Yeah, I said bluntly. Existence is not equitable, which is precisely why I'm not enrolling to compensate for your errors. I disconnected before they could proceed into part 2 of their lament tale. For the following few weeks, things were chilly. No calls. No messages. Truthfully, I relished the tranquility. But then I began observing minor indicators online. A real estate notification I'd established years prior. Mostly because I like to monitor locations that held meaning for me, appeared in my inbox. The title, fresh posting. Davis Kin Eatery. I gazed at it for an extended moment. They were actually proceeding. They were genuinely vending Grandpa's eatery without even notifying me. I selected the posting. Images of the eating area, the cooking space. The vintage glowing sign. The summary was embellished with the standard agent exaggeration. Excellent spot. Investment prospect, strong promise, no reference that it was once the core of a kin. No reference of grandpa who'd invested decades into it, just an asset to be resold. I contacted Mom right away. She responded on the third tone, voice overly sweet. "Oh, hello, dear, all fine?" "Yeah," I said, observed the posting. "You're vending the eatery?" There was a delay, intentional and artificial. "Well, yes, we intended to inform you, it's just, you're so occupied there and we didn't assume you'd be concerned." "Concerned?" I echoed, "it's Grandpa's eatery." "Of course I'm concerned." Mom exhaled like I was being irrational. "Ethan, it's turned into a monetary load, the levies, the maintenance, everything, and currently the market's favorable. It's the wisest action for the kin, Always for the kin, which typically meant for Janice and Jake. I didn't debate, I didn't shout, I didn't plead. I just said, okay, appreciate the info. And when I disconnected, I remained there for a lengthy period, gazing at my overhead fan. Something within me altered, not fury, not sorrow, just lucidity. They desired to eliminate me again, pretend my connection with that spot didn't count, pretend Grandpa's statement didn't count, pretend the eatery was just another resource to sell off because they'd messed themselves into obligations. They assumed I'd allow it pass. But this occasion, I wasn't going to. The former version of me, the comply-to-avoid-trouble type, would have brooded for a week. Perhaps dispatched a lengthy, indirectly hostile message and then let it fade. That type was vanished. I wasn't about to dispute with individuals who already concluded I didn't matter. If they wanted to act underhanded, fine. I'd act more intelligently. Initial step, I established a company, Bennett Ventures. Bennett's my second name. Simple, ordinary, dull enough that nobody would inspect closely. I employed a purchaser's representative, too, so even the agent wouldn't realize it was me. Every hint of Ethan Davis disappeared from the transaction. Just another anonymous financier, with documents prepared and funds arranged. When I traveled back, I didn't notify anyone. I donned a jacket, styled my hair, and entered the eatery like I was an outsider. The agent was awaiting with her large, artificial grin. "Excellent location, much promise," she twittered. I nodded like a person who valued calculations more than recollections. Internally, it was a stomach blow I didn't reveal. The seats were grimy, the glowing sign sputtered like it was fading, and the cooking area smelled like oil that hadn't been cleaned in years. But beneath all that, I could still envision Grandpa bending over the counter, turning patties like he had endless time. The agent continued discussing figures. Busy zone, ample growth if you update. I traced my hand along the counter, feigning to evaluate it like I wasn't reliving my youth in the rear seat. I maintained composure. "Yeah, I can handle this." We inspected the spot and I kept my facade. No feeling, no sentiment, just a person eager in finalizing quickly. That's precisely what they desired. Someone who wouldn't probe excessively. The proposal went in via my company, a bit below asking. And guess what? They agreed without delay, because avarice makes folks careless. We finalized merely 2 days prior to Thanksgiving, which meant Janice's major announcement was the transaction she didn't even comprehend I'd already executed to myself. My kin had no idea. To them, I was still the unseen middle offspring, too distant and too engaged to bother. Ideal. Then arrived Thanksgiving. Janice dispatched the message, meal at Mom and Dad's, 7 p.m., dressy clothing. Major update to reveal. The punctuation almost yelled she thought she was about to make a splash. I confirmed attendance. I arrived in a dark outfit, container of wine in grasp. Jake opened the entrance already reeking of inexpensive scent and urgency. "Well, look who eventually appears," he smirked. The phantom of Thanksgiving. Inside, the adornments were excessive. Mom fluttering around with her cover. Dad presiding like he was leading a discussion program. Janice sat at the table in some glittering outfit, browsing on her device like she was too significant to glance up. Same spectacle, different celebration. Meal commenced ordinarily enough. Bird, filling, berry relish. Janice boasted about her patrons. Jake made quips about digital money like he wasn't impoverished. And Mom beamed too broadly at every tale. I performed my role. Silent, courteous, agreeing when anticipated. Then, right as dessert was being distributed, Mom placed her utensil down with a conceited little grin. We finally disposed of Grandpa's eatery. The purchasers virtually leaped at the opportunity. Janice chuckled, twirling her drink. High time, that spot was such a squander. And Ethan? Well, he was never in the inheritance anyway, which is fortunate cause he'd only mess it up. Jake added on, yeah, can you picture if he obtained it? He'd likely convert it into some odd digital fortress. I permitted them their brief humor act. I took a gradual drink from my cup, placed it down, and finally uttered. Nice, hope you savor the funds, since I'm the one who acquired it. Quiet. Utter flawless quiet. Mom stiffened, mid-grin. Janice fluttered her eyes like she misunderstood. Jake's smirk faded into a puzzled semi-scowl. Dad's mouth tightened so firmly I thought his dentition might shatter. I reclined in my seat, composed as always. Yeah, Bennett Ventures, that's me. Felicitations. You've ended Grandpa's eatery to the offspring you vowed wasn't in the inheritance. No one stirred. The only noise was the drone of the warmer and the tink of Janice's utensils slipping off her dish. I didn't hurry to occupy the quiet. I wanted them to dwell in it, fidget in it, comprehend for once they weren't the ones controlling the narrative. Dad eventually shattered. Ethan, don't be absurd. The purchasers were from outside the state, some property firm. I grinned. Bennett Ventures, investigate it. Legitimate, pristine, secure. I just utilized my second name. Guess your agent wasn't too keen about verifying. Mom's tone broke. Why would you do this secretly? Secretly? I chuckled. You mean like how you attempted to vend it secretly from me? Don't misconstrue it. The only thing I did was engage your scheme superior. Jake murmured something softly, but I disregarded him. My gaze remained on Dad. He appeared like a man who just comprehended his strategy didn't function anymore. The remainder of meal was tense and uncomfortable. Janice poked at her dessert like it had insulted her personally. Mom vanished into the cooking area for 20 minutes and returned with compelled enthusiasm on her visage. Dad remained there sipping his beverage, mute, gaze remote. I didn't urge. I didn't boast. I just remained there, serene, ironic, grin in position, allowing the quiet do all the communicating. Because for the first occasion in my existence, I wasn't the unseen middle offspring anymore. I was the issue they didn't foresee, and I'd only just commenced. The repercussions from Thanksgiving were nearly humorous collective messages ignited like pyrotechnics the following day. Mom dispatched the initial one, brief and pointed. You ambushed us. This kin has always made choices collectively. Right after her came Janice. Truly elegant, Ethan, acquiring the eatery just to resent us. You really assume this elevates you? And naturally, Jake. Always the amusing support. Dude, you should have informed me. I could have secured us a superior agreement. I didn't reply to any of it. Quiet is undervalued. You can convey more with nil than they ever could with sections of illusion. Instead, I began investigating. If there's one thing I've acquired in my profession, it's that document paths don't deceive. Individuals do. Kin definitely do. But documents? That's where the reality conceals. So one evening I accessed the district's digital archives. Simple enough. A few selections, some term hunts, and there it was. A transfer document shifting the eatery to my parents 3 weeks post-Grandpa's burial. That was my initial warning. Why the haste? Why not permit it through a state process like any standard legacy would? I gazed at the paper for a lengthy period. My mom's mark was there, my dad's and Grandpa's, except something about it didn't feel correct. I recalled Grandpa's script from when he used to leave me memos at the eatery. Chunky, intentional, heavy on the pigment. The mark on that document appeared wrong, hurried. Still, I didn't leap to assumptions. Instead, I proceeded further. Estate archives, testaments submitted around the period Grandpa departed. It didn't take long to locate one. An earlier testament, dated years prior, designating my mom as the primary recipient. But that wasn't the segment that made my gut contract. It was the discrepancy. I knew for certain Grandpa had revised his documents in the final year of his life. He'd referenced it to me casually once, seated in his workspace at the eatery, saying, got to ensure everything's arranged the way I desire. So where was that addition? I contacted the district office the next day. The lady on the line sounded like she'd prefer to be elsewhere, but she was assistive enough. There was a subsequent testament submitted, she said. It's in the storage. I can send you a duplicate. And then she appended something that made it connect. The testament had been registered, but never processed for estate. My parents had advanced the prior edition and covered the rest with that falsified transfer. 5 days later, a slim package arrived at my residence. Testaments are open records after passing. So the official sent me a verified duplicate directly from the storage. I sat at the eating table, gazing at it like it was hazardous. Then I ripped it open. There it was in monochrome. Grandpa's final testament and declaration, dated just 1 month before he departed. My eyes examined the sheet, and then I spotted it. To my grandson, Ethan Bennett Davis, I bequeath my eatery and all its items. He has always treasured its legacy and will safeguard what counts most. I perused it 3 times just to confirm I wasn't imagining. Grandpa hadn't merely suggested, he hadn't merely discussed. He'd made it formal. He bequeathed the eatery to me, and my kin concealed it. I sat there for a lengthy period, the sheet quivering in my grasp. It wasn't just robbery. It was a complete revision of the past. They had stood there at Thanksgiving, grinning, chuckling, behaving like I was some outsider, all while aware this eatery was intended to be mine. That's when something connected in me. I wasn't just going to relax and relish the fact that I'd outwitted them with the acquisition. That wasn't sufficient anymore. They'd transgressed a boundary so profound, it divided the earth in two. The subsequent action was evident. I required an attorney. I made some contacts and secured a session with a fellow named David. Mid-40s, crisp attire, the type of attorney who hears more than he speaks. I presented it all. The document, the testament, the schedule. He browsed through the sheets, brows elevating higher with each page. "Let me surmise," he said eventually. "Your parents never presented this addition to estate." "Appears so," I said. He pointed at the date at the base of the testament. "This is the latest addition, legally enforceable. If they submitted the old one instead and hastened that transfer document, we're examining deception." The term lingered in the atmosphere like a burden. Deception, not a misinterpretation, not a kin dispute. Deception, I didn't grin, didn't make a quip, I just agreed. "So what occurs next?" David reclined in his seat. "We construct the argument. Cautiously, silently. We don't alert them yet, but you've got something substantial here." Exiting his workspace, I experienced something I hadn't felt in years: authority. For once, I wasn't the outsider receiving remnants. I was grasping the options and they didn't even realize it. That weekend, I traveled to the eatery. My eatery. I unlocked the entrance and entered. The atmosphere smelled old. The ground adhesive from neglect. But I didn't mind. I proceeded directly to Grandpa's former workspace, sat at his worn table, and retrieved the testament from my sack. I placed it on the table, right where he used to endorse bills and compose me small memos about not overlooking to remove the waste. "This is mine," I uttered aloud, tone firm. Not to anyone else, just to myself. And for the first time, I trusted it. Trusting it and demonstrating it were two distinct matters. My kin had already displayed they were prepared to distort truth into whatever form made them appear blameless. I wasn't about to enter this battle with only one sheet of paper. I needed a stronghold of proof. David, my attorney, established the mood in our next session. "We don't just demonstrate deception," he said. "We overwhelm them with details. Accounts, records, the complete set," so I began searching. Initial halt, Grandpa's former accountant, a silver-haired fellow named Wallace. I half anticipated him to dismiss me, but when I cited my grandfather's name, he actually brightened. "Your granddad was astute, always explicit about what he desired." Wallace accessed old communications, and sure enough, there it was. One dated a week prior to Grandpa's passing, outlining his legacy strategy. The eatery to me, ornaments to Janice, a minor fund for Jake. He also cited a distinct maintenance fund, 40,000 allocated specifically for eatery fixes and levies. He even composed, "I hope they respect this, but if not, it's secure." That communication alone was explosive. Wallace reproduced it and endorsed a declaration confirming it was genuine. Next halt was the eatery itself. I located one of Grandpa's former chefs, Tony, still employed at an adjacent cafe. When I inquired about Grandpa's plans, he didn't even pause. He informed me countless times the spot was yours, said you were the only one who valued. The others just viewed it as a money device. Tony consented to declare if it reached that. Then there was Martha, a lady from Grandpa's congregation who used to assist at the meal events he operated from the eatery's cooking area. When I asked if she recalled him discussing the future of the place, she chuckled. "Oh, he never stopped about it, said you were the only one who'd maintain it operating the way he desired." Another declaration endorsed. The verifier segment was more complex, but David managed it. He located the lady noted on the transfer document, Donna. She was direct on the line. I never verified that. Wasn't even in the area that day. And she still possessed her records showing her timetable. Additionally, she indicated the imprint spacing didn't even align with her formal mark. The falsification was essentially a careless duplicate effort that crumbled the moment anyone examined it. Decisive victory. Segment by segment, the argument was forming itself. Every falsehood they'd told me was disintegrating, and the document path was proclaiming the reality. But while David managed the lawful aspect, I needed something for myself. Something to maintain my sanity. That's when I resolved to begin reviving the eatery, not in some theatrical screen renovation manner, just one phase at a time. I took 2 weeks from employment, folded my arms, and proceeded. First day I entered with a builder to evaluate the base and moisture harm. The fellow whistled softly. It's tough, but not finished. She's got solid structure. I almost chuckled. He didn't comprehend he was portraying me too. From there it was cleansing, abrading, transporting debris. I discovered old listings in the storage space. All marked, but still readable. I retrieved Grandpa's formula collection from the secure in his workspace. The exterior was split, but his script occupied every sheet. That collection alone was valued more to me than whatever funds my kin thought they'd secured. Locals began noticing the movement. One lady from opposite the road, Mrs. Valenti, visited with fruit loaf. "Your grandfather would be pleased," she said. "He always said you'd handle this place correctly." She remained in the entrance for a while, sharing tales about how he'd slip her additional breads when she couldn't cover a dish. It recalled why this spot counted. It wasn't just barriers and seats, it was heritage. At night, I'd remain in the workspace, encircled by dirt and flaking coating, with Grandpa's testament placed on the table. I didn't descend. No imbibing excesses, no self-sympathy. Instead, I created inventories, builders to contact, items to substitute, proof to arrange. Every duty was energy. Meanwhile, David continued advancing. He arranged the accountant, the chef, the congregation acquaintance, the verifier. He assembled every paper we had into a schedule so strict it was like a snare. When this proceeds to tribunal, he said, they won't have space to maneuver. We'll have them confined from every direction. It wasn't just about triumphing. It was about ultimately reversing the narrative. My kin had always relied on me being silent, being the backdrop fellow. Now I was systematically igniting their story, and I didn't have to yell to accomplish it. By the conclusion of those 2 weeks, the eatery already appeared different. The filth was removed, the seats were cleaned, the glowing sign repaired enough to shine consistently again. I even mounted one of Grandpa's former images on the wall, him positioned behind the counter, beaming like he controlled the globe. For the first time in years, I felt stable, concentrated, threatening in a way they weren't prepared for. The argument was shaping, the eatery was revitalizing, and the individuals who thought they'd eliminated me were about to discover the difficult way. I wasn't unseen anymore. And this time, I had all the evidence I needed to incinerate their deceptions to ashes. David submitted the case silently, systematically, like a doctor making the initial cut. Deceptive hiding of a legitimate testament, illegal shift of asset, falsification, improper use of legacy resources, the complete array. I didn't inform anyone. No alert messages, no kin calls. If they were going to discover, it would be when the documents arrived in their post. And oh, they discovered. Jake was the first to violate quiet, contacting me from a hidden number like he was conducting some covert operation. "Dude, what are you executing? This is mad. You're litigating Mom and Dad." I maintained my tone composed. "I'm not litigating my parents, Jake. I'm litigating the individuals who pilfered my legacy and falsified legal papers. If that happens to be Mom and Dad, then that's on them." Click. He disconnected without another term. The next contact came from Janice, a complete show. "Ethan, you've gone crazy. You couldn't just converse with us. You had to go extreme." I almost chuckled. "Amusing, Jen. I don't recall you inviting me to converse before you vended the eatery from beneath me. Guess extreme is the only dialect you comprehend." The day of tribunal felt dreamlike. I arrived in a neat outfit, documents organized, David beside me, serene, gathered, assured. My parents entered together, rigid and fragile. Janice followed them, shoes tapping too noisily against the smooth floor, her visage fixed in a mask of incredulity. Jake didn't appear. Usual. The magistrate was an elder lady with keen lenses and the type of stance that informed you she'd witnessed every justification in the volume. Ideal. David proceeded first with introductory remarks. He didn't dramatize, he didn't require to. He presented it evident as daylight. "Your Honor, my client was the legitimate successor to his grandfather's eatery. The testament displays this. The accused deliberately submitted an obsolete edition and falsified a transfer document to capture control. We will demonstrate this was not an error. It was deliberate." Then their attorney rose. Some regional fellow I dimly recalled from tacky screen ads about accident claims. He attempted to portray it like there was no deception, just confusion during a tough period. According to him, my parents were grieving, overloaded, and just performing their utmost. Correct. Their utmost just occurred to fill their wallets. Then came the proof. One by one, David presented the strong elements. First, the testament, dated a month before Grandpa's passing, designating me as the successor to the eatery. No vagueness. My name in text, endorsed by him. The magistrate examined it gradually, visage inscrutable. Next, Wallace, the accountant. He declared calmly about the communication Grandpa had dispatched, outlining his legacy strategy. He even had a reproduced copy with the time mark. He was very explicit. The eatery was going to Ethan, and then Tony, the former chef. He informed the tribunal how Grandpa continually discussed me inheriting the spot. He said the others didn't value the eatery. Ethan did. That was it. Martha from the congregation followed. She retold Grandpa's terms almost word for word. Ethan's the only one who won't convert this into a rental. Even the magistrate displayed the slightest grin at that. Finally, the decisive strike. Donna, the verifier, she vowed under pledge she hadn't verified the transfer document. Her record showed she was at a medical visit the day it was allegedly endorsed. That's not my mark. It's a falsification. You could sense the atmosphere shift in the space. Their attorney rearranged his sheets like perhaps a wonder would emerge. My parents sat immobile. Mom's makeup was cracking at the edges. Dad's mouth was secured so tightly his visage was flushed. David wasn't finished. He presented Grandpa's formula collection, the one I'd located in the workspace. Inside, inserted between oil-marked sheets, was a scripted memo addressed to me. It wasn't lengthy, but it was all. Ethan, if you're perusing this, I hope it all proceeded as I intended. But if they attempted to seize it, remember, you don't plead for authority, you reclaim it. Silently, composedly. That memo resounded through the space like a mallet striking metal. The protection attempted their final option, depicting me as resentful, trivial, the overlooked middle offspring seeking vengeance. David closed that down immediately. Trivial doesn't produce falsified marks. Vengeance doesn't remove testaments from estate archives. Deception does. When concluding remarks concluded, the magistrate didn't squander time. She proceeded point by point, cutting through their justifications like thin material. The proof is evident. The legitimate testament designated Ethan Davis as the successor to the eatery. The document was falsified.